was, though, very interested in business. So at the age of 30, and I had 2 kids at the time, 1 and 3, I did a full-time MBA. And of course had fantastic childcare to help me do that. And I have to say, you know, so this was the early 90s, and I'm still in touch with that person. That gave me the launch pad to go into banking and finance, which is what I wanted to do. And with my international background, I was able to do that into London, because in the 80s and 90s, 90s has started to tail off, but I rode a whole wave of North Americans that came into London for the financial sector. And I think actually my accent made me sound like I had a really deep experience in banking, but I didn't. But I leveraged what I had. So my first job was head of product marketing and sales for repo and securities lending, so short-term money market product. And I did that for about 5 years. Absolutely loved it. And the guy that hired me actually left after like 2 years, and I was devastated. And Mark said, you know, Christine, this will open up opportunities, you know, really great boss. But then, so it was with SBC that then became UBS, and actually what great training ground that was for being flexible and agile, because SBC had just bought Connor Derivatives, it bought Warburg's, it bought Brinson Partners, the asset manager. So like every 6 months, my business card would change because there was another merger. And with a merger, you know, different people, different power bases. So I learned to be very kind of adaptable. So anyway, so was at SBC for 5 years, and my former boss kept calling me and say, oh, Christine, you know, my good friend is head of fixed income at Nomura, and he could really use a right-hand man. And I think you'd be great at that job. I see kind of the skill sets that you bring to the table. And I said, oh, you know, I'm busy. And then I said, why? After a while, I thought, what do I have to lose? I'm allowed to have conversations with people outside of my employer. So I had a conversation with the then head of fixed income. So this was around 98, and I got really excited because it was an opportunity to see the whole business and not just my product area. I was a little sad to give up the client side. I love the client side of the business, but the opportunity to be more involved in management and see the whole business was really appealing. Also, I sensed that there was change. Nomura had just, in Japan, they had been banned from the JGB auction, and it shook the organization up for, I think it was a 6-month ban. And so particularly overseas, things sounded like they were changing. So I made the change, never imagined that I would be there as long as I was. In the end, I was there for about 12 years. Absolutely loved it, loved my career in banking. You know, so many interesting people, international. I mean, the trading floor is like the UN, right? And each sales desk represents a different geographical area. I was just really in my sweet spot. Financial crisis came, not so fun. Culturally, you know, some challenges, and really by you know, destiny, coincidence, I was asked to do the talk at the launch of a women's network. And this was about 2010. And I said, well, I have a couple questions. What's a women's network? So it made me realize I was just head down, doing the job. At that point, you know, I was COO of our group in fixed income. So I said, well, that's interesting. So what is this women's network? Well, we really want to do a better job promoting women, have women in senior positions. I said, okay, well, that sounds like a good objective. Why me? And they said, well, you're a female managing director and you have a family. We want to know how you did it. And my mouth dropped. Like, did what? What are you talking about? So I obviously had to say yes to this opportunity, really high profile, but I had to figure out the answer to that question. And Mark mentioned about myths. So the answer to that question was that every time I learned a skill or mindset in my personal life with my family, I would bring it into the workplace and vice versa. So I never, I just thought about it as me kind of growing in both environments and then, kind of that cross skills. So an example would be at work, I would all in a difficult situation, I would always think about what would my kids expect me to do? What's the right thing to do here? So that values and that leadership. Vice versa, so many skills from the workplace into the personal life. And I think be interesting to hear your views as we have our conversation, but I think we often underestimate what we do bring to our personal lives because of our careers. So that myth was all about, all the message I heard was, career hurts family, it takes away from family, they're always in opposition. And my experience was that actually they're a complementary pair. Without my family, I would have never progressed to managing director. No way. They helped ground me, made me realize what was important, helped me communicate as a leader. So that was really the myth. So that was the talk. That was the talk. And when I was giving this talk at the launch of this network, I heard a little voice in my head say, Christine, this is what you should be doing now. You should be helping other women find the careers that they love, balance their personal lives. So that for me was the turning moment where I thought, I need to figure this out. So I didn't resign right away or whatever. I decided to take the summer off and just think about what I wanted to do. And that was scary. And again, I heard my kids, I heard myself telling my kids, you've got to take risks. You have to try new things. And so I, with their voices in my head, I did that. And that's really how I transitioned into this role as career coach.
Amazing. Thanks, Christine. Thank you for that. Thank you. That standing up in front of that women's network, this was 10 years ago. How have things changed over the last 10 years for women in the workplace? And indeed, probably, over the last 20 years, let's go back before that as well.
It's an interesting perspective because I think sometimes we forget that there has been progress. I think that when one thing I'm really thankful for is that my mother-in-law, she had 8 kids, stayed at home, went back to work, kind of later in life. She was so supportive of how my husband and I did things and worked as a team. But it was a lonely place. I mean, we didn't talk about diversity. We didn't talk about mentors or sponsors. And there was very little recognition that, especially for women and women with families, that the workplace isn't very friendly, right? If I think back over my career, I mean, so I have 3 kids, 2 adult kids and a university student. When my university student age child was a baby and I was on maternity leave, I remember trying to log on. Forget it. Just spin. So this would have been, he was born in 2000. So technology wise, I mean, I would have loved to have been able to go to a football match with my child and then come home and then log on or whatever. That was not on the plate. It was not possible. Also, the thinking about working flexibly or working part-time, I never had the courage to do that because what I saw was anyone who did that, their career progression was halted. And I think that now, especially with COVID, and this is the positive thing, I think COVID has finally changed the mindset of businesses that you don't need to be tied to a desk 5 days a week to have an impact on the business. So I think that's incredibly positive, as well as a network like this, that you have other people who can share your experience, and you know, just having that conversation makes you feel like, I'm not alone. And as I said, you know, in my career, it was just starting to happen, you know, towards the end.
Brilliant. Thank you again for that, Christine. What's in terms of that those early days with your two, we call them your adult children now, how did you juggle? How did you, you know, your first book, I think, is called Step Aside Superwoman.
That's right.
You were, you know, so people would look at you in those days and say, here she is, top of her career, 2 young children, she's Superwoman. What does Step Aside Superwoman mean?
Yeah, I love the way you framed that question. So the whole point was, as I was, you know, working in, you know, towards my you know, promotions and things, and you know, my husband was having success in his career. He was in accounting. I had a realization, I think it was on a weekend, that if I tried to do everything myself, that there's no way that I'm going to be able to progress my career. And especially, you know, and my husband never said, you're responsible for all this. It was like I think it was a socialization. I felt like I was responsible. So on the weekends, I would bust a gut trying to do all these things, to organize things, to then work full time. And what happened was, I had a conversation with my other half, and I said, you know, I realize now that I need to be thinking like I do at work. Where can I have the most impact at home? And so I started thinking about the things I was doing that actually, you know, why am I working full time and cleaning my own house? I mean, that doesn't make sense. For me, it wasn't something I enjoyed. Some people find it therapeutic. So the point really was, what are the things I enjoyed? What don't I enjoy? So that I had energy and also time, quality time with my children. You know, the weekends were about fun, having fun and spending time with them. So I had this, so it was when I realized it's not about being Superwoman. I can wear that badge and say, I do all these things, but no, what I said was, okay, if I'm going to be successful, I need energy. I need to regroup during the weekend. I can't be then taking on another full-time job. How am I positioning myself so I can really feel like I'm having an impact on my kids, and feel like I'm energized? And also feeling like that burden wasn't all my burden. So my husband and I always have really been a team, and have had, you know, sometimes it's tough conversations. So step aside Superwoman and say, hey, I'm not Superwoman. I have a team, just like at work. I have a team. I have a team that helps me, and is part of our family. And I recently, one of our so we did often have nannies at home. So when we were both in the city, because we would leave at a very early hour. But those type of individuals, they were part of the family. And that was how we managed things. You know, they you know, and just like at work, giving those individuals autonomy, but also kind of direction. But it was amazing how that you know, transfer of the skills, you're just going into a different environment, but managing people is the same.
There's a lot of people might be listening to this, and I kind of got some agreement with them. Quite often I go to meetings with D&I officers, and we talk about women and gender diversity, and it immediately comes to children, to the challenges that women face with children, etc., etc. Can we also then just talk about the career aspects. Let's talk about women and careers. What are your top tips for progressing?
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of this fits into my journey. So 2019, beginning of the year, a handful of people said to me, "Oh, Christine, you should write another book. We love the way that you feel it's like you're talking to us." And I said, "Well, what would I write about?" And literally one morning I woke up and the whole book was in my head. It's like, well, this is the things I've been talking about for the last 10 years. It's all around being strategic in your career. It's about building those relationships and finding those people that will open doors. It's all those soft skills that are career critical. Because what I realized from the women that I was working with through one-on-one coaching and workshops is there was a pattern where they were working really hard, they were progressing, and then there came a point where they just felt stuck. And what was so interesting, it was like I had done a research report because this pattern I kept seeing. And one of the key ones was around relationships, where I remember a client, for instance, who who was in banking and finance, who was absolutely the expert at what she did, but she wasn't getting to that director level, and director and MD especially. And I said to her, like, well, okay, well, tell me about your network. Who supports you? My boss thinks I do a great job. I said, well, okay, well, at director level, your boss puts you up, but you have to, you've got to have other people supporting that promotion. So it was around adding that, what I would call a strategic filter to your career. Where do you want to go? Okay. Who are the people that need to see me? And what are the things I need to be talking about so that it's positioning me for that, that next level. So that the second book, Unlock Your Career Success, Knowing the Unwritten Rules Changes Everything, is all around that, as I say, that soft stuff.
Okay. Tell us about that second book then, and some of the key themes in it. And obviously, you've mentioned networking there. Perhaps planning, a desire, not thinking it's just going to happen.
Absolutely. And also that you said in the introduction, the myth is the harder we work, the more that our careers are going to progress. Head down, harder we work. And that's absolutely true at the beginning of our careers. But the more senior you become, those other career enhancing behaviors and mindset, come into play. And it's not that the world is a dark place and that's negative. If you think about it, also, in the current virtual environment, and everything I'm talking about equally applies in the virtual world. If you think about it, people can't read your mind, right? They don't know what you're looking to do next. So it's up to you to help them connect that dots. It's up to you to think about, okay, what do I need to be talking about so the other person sees how they can use me, how the organization, can use me. And so it really is about, thinking beyond your immediate tasks. And also, I know time is a really precious asset. You think, oh, well, I don't really have time to have those conversations. Those conversations could help you also in your day job. What's happening in your organization? What's happening in your department? What's happening in your industry? And how can you align yourself, to that, to the future? I'm really curious. Could I let's have a show of hands. So how many people have had the experience of being passed over for a promotion where they thought, I was the right, I was really the person that should have had that? Anybody had that experience? Yeah. Yeah. And it's devastating. It's absolutely, it's devastating. And because you know that you're as good or better than that other person. So can I be so bold as maybe Sandrine to go to you to say, you know, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, it's linking back to everything that you said, basically. And I think, and that's conversation I had with other women who work in the financial sector as well. That's the way we've been taught from a young age at school and so on. It's like as a young girl and then becoming a woman, work hard. And that would be based on meritocracy. So what have we done in general? And that's what I did. Head down, work hard, and somebody will tap on my shoulder and say, you'll be promoted. It didn't happen, okay? And you think, it's unfair. It's unfair. What's going to happen? So you feel let down, all the negatives kicked in. So, and that's exactly back to what you said. You need to have the network. But what we have a tendency to do in general, and I'm the first one to do it, I manage down. I look after other people. I make sure they're safe in a way. I make sure they get promoted, but I'm really bad at managing up. Because why? As again, back to education and the way we've been brought up, I don't want to say I'm doing a good job. I will sound arrogant. I don't want to do that. And when men around me, and trust me, I'm not a feminist, okay? Just going to be very clear. But men around me all along my career, I've been saying they've been doing great stuff when I knew damn well they couldn't do it. And I was doing it. And they got the promotion. And that's exactly what happened to me not long ago. I was told it was like a fait accompli. This is what's happening. And there we go. And God, I felt bad. Yes, well, I didn't manage up, basically. And I didn't look at that network. I didn't have this conversation because you think, again, it's based on meritocracy. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and it is. I do think that there's something, you know, obviously I'm not an academic, but I do think that there's something around the socialization that somehow the boys are taught that you have to have these conversations where the girls are taught, you know, it's just about the hard work. And, you know, the thing is, it's just having maybe a broader definition of meritocracy, right? Because it's like, okay, you're the expert, but if nobody knows it, then right, it doesn't work. So, and it's also these you know, the formula to career success, it's the same for men and women. This is another kind of takeaway that I've had from my corporate career. But what I found was, so it's the same for men and women. We both have to have visibility. As Sandrine says, we both have to, you know, navigate upwards. But the way that we do that, what I found is that when women did it in the way that men do it, that they would be criticized. And so it's also, but the good side of that is, okay, being authentic to who you are, and doing that self-promotion in a way that feels more natural. So let me give you an example. So what I found really useful was I didn't feel comfortable saying, I'm great at this, I'm great at that. And what was amazing is the guys would be in these meetings and they'd be banging the table how great they were, and everybody accepted that. That was acceptable behavior. But what I found is I had to think about, I had to talk about the business. That was my comfort zone. And what I learned to do is talk about the business and its success and positioning myself in that was clear that was successful because of me. And that felt comfortable. And then also, here's another tip, is to think about, well, when I'm sharing with others what I'm doing, then they can benefit from that, right? Maybe I'm giving them an idea how to solve their own challenges, business challenges. Also, particularly your boss, but you know, other people above you, they have to self-promote. So you're giving them content, right? By you sharing what's happening and what's working, and right, you're then giving them a story to share with their, you know, with their managers. And that's important. as important. So kind of distancing yourself from, oh, it's about me, to thinking about, it's about the business. And I'm helping the business. I'm also helping the business because when people see the value that I can bring, the business can use me better. They'll know how to use me. So that's one of the ways that I kind of got away from that thinking about the self. And also that would make me so nervous. Oh, am I good enough? Am I good enough? I'm wondering, Shazia, have I pronounced your name? I think you had your hand up as well. Could you share?
Yeah, sure. I feel that a number of times in my career that I could have been promoted. But I have to say, I'm absolutely awful, terrible at talking about what I've done and sharing my successes and what I've contributed, and just sort of demonstrating verbally to someone and singing my praises and being able to get that promotion through. I was actually up for promotion in a previous job recently, and I had my delivery manager sort of sitting there talking about the things that I'd achieved, that we put something together ourselves to sort of talk about why I felt I should get this promotion. And he did a good job in talking about what I did, but I don't think I did a very good job in talking about what I did, yet he could do it quite easily and say, Shazia should get this promotion because of these things, and she's successfully done this, and she's coached other people, and she's delivered on this, and she's got the right attitude, she's at the right level in her career. He could do that quite easily. When it was my turn, I think I was a bit, I didn't give myself the credit I deserved. So obviously the response was, we don't feel she's quite ready yet.
Yes.
I wasn't too surprised when that happened, because I could hear myself speaking and I was thinking, that doesn't really sound that strong, yet what you're saying is strong, but how you're saying it is not strong. I think it's that self sort of belief in that you deserve to be promoted.
Right. Yeah, and I think the good news is these situations, you can turn them around. So thinking about, I mentioned about being strategic. So thinking about, before you're meeting somebody, okay, what's my soundbite? How do I want to phrase this so that, it sounds interesting, people can repeat it. I say soundbite because you want to make it interesting so that it goes viral, that everybody in the organization knows what a great job Shazia is doing, right? But it's being intentional. And your boss, he's just he's practiced at that, yeah. Right? It's not that it comes, that it comes naturally. I think the first boss that hired me in London, he was so good at promoting our product and our business and promoting, his team. I learned a lot just by watching him. And that's another tip, for people that you see that do this well, to say, how did they do that? Okay, how can I use that, for my story? But and then once you kind of get in the rhythm of things, it becomes natural. You just start to naturally, talk about, what you're doing and what's happening. Anybody else want to share on that point? Just put your hand up. Leslie.
Do you think as women, we use the we word more than the I word, and we should learn to use I more often?
Really interesting point. I think it depends. So here's an example where I think we works better. In meetings, when there's a heated discussion and also you're trying to put in your opinion, but you don't want to get it shot down. You want people to listen. I think we works really well. So some of the tricks would be, have we considered this approach? Have we considered this aspect? Have we considered this risk? So instead of you hanging your opinion out with an I in this meeting that could get shot down, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to think differently. They're all going down this way, and you're like, oh gosh, I'm so frustrated, they're missing the point. That works really well. You know, have we considered this? Have we thought about that? Or here's an interesting idea. The here is also very good. Now, when you're talking about the you know, the business and your success, if it's like a what's the word, an application, or for instance, like some of the accounting firms, you've got to write in your, you know, the reasons why you should be promoted to that next level. You want to use, right? It's about the I. When you're maybe promoting yourself and your abilities to somebody else in the organization, then there I think you can weave in the I, but maybe more softly, where you could be saying, you know, at the moment, you know, here's, you know, I'm really involved in this, and I'm really excited about this work and the impact that you know, my team is having. You know, my team is also a good one, because it's I, but it's a little softer. So it is true. I agree with you, Leslie, that I've had feedback where managers will be trying to get their one of their team members promoted, and their justification for the promotion has we, right? It's like, no, it's I. You got to be thinking about, you know, what you specifically as an individual are doing. And I do think that for women, we'll default to the we more than the I in general.
Thanks, that's really helpful.
Any other comments or questions on that point? Great. So what I'm wondering, and this is just such a great conversation, is so in terms of this whole idea of career progression and what we need to be doing, who finds, show of hands, who finds networking a challenge? Okay, lots of hands. So, so Sylvia, let's go to you. So networking, why is it a challenge?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. It's just finding time. I sometimes think it's a little bit of wasted time. Sorry. Or I'm a little bit like what we have been describing, that I'm more a person that I will be working hard or looking down. And sometimes for me, it's a little bit fake as well. Like you try to do the networking because you have an ultimate objective, maybe that is maybe to achieve a promotion, right? So it doesn't sound very, to me in my mind, and it's probably something that I need to change. It doesn't sound natural or honest.
Yes.
I'm quite authentic person, so I think probably I need to reprogram my mind and do a little bit of NLP maybe, and try to reprogram that, because I think it's I think it's time. So it takes time, and you need to make the effort. But also I think it's the honest element of you are doing it for your own objective, which is maybe not just to be friendly and nice to people, but also maybe to find opportunities, which I don't know why in my mind is a little bit of it's less positive, that element. So I think I need to change my mind in that sense.
And part of that reason it's less positive could be that you see other people networking who you think, you know, they're your face says it all. So a couple thoughts on that. One is the time. Oh, absolutely. And I think this is going back to Mark's earlier questions. I think this is why for women it is a challenge, because women generally have more responsibilities at home. And so then to do networking, especially after hours, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So one of the things to think about on the time element is to be strategic. You know, where the people that need to see you, Sylvia, need to know about you and the great work that you do, where do they hang out, right? where, you know, what are the contexts that maybe that's the thing that you should be going to. I remember that in my banking career, an odd thing, we'd have drinks for people leaving, but never for people joining, right? And the leaving drinks, you'd have a leaving drink every week. And I just could not, for me, that didn't work. However, I'd make exceptions for certain individuals, either for somebody that I really knew or who I felt that needed to see me, right? But I was really strategic. So it's really thinking about, okay, who are those individuals? You know, where do they hang out? Where might be that context? And it may not be, you know, an after hours thing. It could be, maybe it's a town hall meeting, right? And then afterwards, maybe there's drinks or something. So thinking about, because all you need really is maybe 5 minutes, right? So it's thinking about, okay, so where are those people? Where are they hanging out? You know, where could I potentially have a conversation? And also that prep, thinking about, what am I going to say, right? Maybe it's somebody in another division who you're interested in transferring to. Okay, how am I going to introduce myself? Because also you could say, oh, you know, that was really interesting about, you know, thanks for that insight into your business. I'd love to continue the conversation. You know, how about a 30-minute, you know, coffee or whatever. And in the virtual world, you can absolutely do that, you know, 30-minute, you know, virtual coffee. Now the point about, Sylvia, that's really interesting. And the point about, you know, you feel like, oh, well, I feel like I'm going to get something, and you should, because it, you know, it has to be strategic. But here's another thing is you definitely want to think about giving before receiving. It works like a gem. So you're meeting somebody, you know, what could you give them? Well, one, you could give them a compliment, genuine. I'm all about the genuine. Forget about pretending. Doesn't work. Puts you down, you know, goes into the wrong path. But, you know, maybe they're telling you about something in their side of the business that you're not familiar with. You could say, gosh, you know, the way that you explain things, that was really clear, right? Saying, oh, I'd love to follow up with you, a 30-minute conversation. You pay them a compliment. You're saying you're worth, you know, listening to. It could be also maybe the conversation goes to, you know, people starting to talk about holidays. You know, remember when we had those? where you could then say, you know, you're interested in going to, you know, Southeast Asia. Well, funny enough, I was in Vietnam, you know, last year. You know, I can send you, I've got some great tips for that. You know, that's giving. Connecting people, a gift. Where you could say, you know, your business is expanding. You're looking at, you know, you mentioned about, you know, needing this type of person. You know, I've got somebody I can really connect you to. That's a gift. So I think there are a few tips there. How about Fiona? I think Fiona, you had your hand up as well. Yeah, you're still on mute there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me it's pretty much the same. It's the time. I don't feel I have a block in reaching out to people and meeting people. I enjoy it, so I don't necessarily see it as, and I don't feel it's contrived, because I'm always quite authentic and want to meet people, because often I totally agree with the giving, and I often, you know, you build a rapport that way. But for me, it's definitely the time, and what I fall foul to, you know, the year after year, I'll say, right, I'm going to block X amount of time each week or each day, you know, like I used to have pop-ups in my diary, reach out to somebody, send an email, you know, try and connect. And I start with these good intentions, and then it just dissolves. I get so busy in the day-to-day work. So even I've had many jobs in recent years where I felt like, you know, hitting a brick wall, going nowhere. So I have a talk to myself, and I'm like, right, you're busying yourself so much trying to, it's not that I'm even trying to please, it's just inbuilt to deliver, but this isn't going to get you anywhere. So you need to like program yourself, spend some time reaching out, and I just don't do it enough. I mean, I'm thinking in the last few months, I've hardly, you know, even at work, you know, I work for a really great leader now, and he instigated these sort of twice a week connecting with somebody in the wider team, which of course I did because we were all doing it. But again, that's not broadening outside of my sphere.
Right. Yeah, the point about, okay, you need to be head down, you have, you know, things to deliver. Absolutely. The thing maybe to remember, Fiona, is that even what you're working on could be enhanced if you had more wider conversations around the organization. And what I mean by that is, especially in the, you know, this kind of pandemic and post-pandemic world, what are the changes that people are talking about, right? Because that's so important, to be aligning yourself to that future. So you could be, you know, you could be delivering the absolute best quality of what you're working on. However, maybe there's wider changes happening that actually the value of that is going down because the direction is changed. And I think this is a really important message in today's business world, and this post-pandemic world, where, you know, we've got to be quick on our feet. What is it that the organization is moving to? What direction? Because also, if you're the kind of person that can quickly change, that's a skill set in and of itself. So then it's just figuring out, okay, how can I align to that future? What are the things that interest me? And that, talk about networking, that is a great networking strategy, right? That's my objective. I just want to find out what's going on, you know, in the organization. And that's benefiting the organization, not just you. Because the organization, they're not, you know, individuals are not all knowing people. They don't know really the things that you're interested in. They may not, right? They have their own bandwidth in terms of what they can pay attention to. So I think networking is and it can be a really great strategy for just improving your current role and maybe expanding it, shifting it, you know, shaping it.
Thank you. That's a really good point. And as you say, if you have a kind of motivational driver, I mean, even just listening to you there, I was like, well, yes, yeah, I loved knowing what's going on. I love getting the bigger picture. I love, you know, I'm very detailed orientated, but I am missing that. So that's already triggered in my brain. I do it for that reason. So thank you.
Great. And the other thing is that in this virtual world that we're in, that I think a 30-minute virtual coffee, I think that really works, because, you know, asking for an hour, I think, is a lot, you know, yeah, particularly in banking and finance, but 30 minutes, I think, can really, and a virtual coffee kind of pre-frames it. I want to have a conversation. We're not talking about a project and task and whatever. It's more, you know, more kind of open-ended.
Christine, just one question. Did you, in your career, network maybe more strategically outside of the firm, like going to other, I don't know, events or presentations, or did you research, or how did you focus that area?
I'm going to be completely honest. I did not. As I was saying with my story, you know, I work for great people who opened doors for me that I didn't even see were there. But I have coached so many women over the years in doing exactly that, where they want to make a change in their career and helping them with a specific networking strategy. And it's about, you know, like events, but the most powerful thing, Sylvia, is really looking at your network and saying, okay, if that's the direction I want to go in, who could I just start having conversations with? Just saying, you know, I'm exploring this area. And then, you know, they oftentimes, without us even knowing it, for people that are in our direct network that we trust, they'll say, oh, well, Sylvia, that's so interesting that you mentioned about wanting to you know, you're interested in this area. It just so happens my neighbor is such and such, or my cousin is such and such. Let me introduce you. So that's a really great point. And networking is the best strategy for career transition as well.
Christine,
Mark, you had your hand up as well on the networking.
Sorry, is
Mark.
that me?
No, Mark.
Oh,
oh
sorry.
yeah, I did. So, but I was just going to say, so Christina, you had a question.
I had a question. Sorry, my keyboard is not working, so I was just trying to kind of. So I just wanted to ask what you think about mentoring and how to find a suitable mentor, whether it's inside the company or in a different industry or in areas where you can get, supported kind of sideways, even if it's not specific to the company you work in.
Right. Yeah, no, excellent thought. So one of the things that's changed is in my career, people didn't talk about mentors or sponsors, but I absolutely see that my own success was due to them without them. And I'm very much the mindset that, even if you're a part of a formalized program, that building these relationships organically are really powerful. So what would be some of my tips? So one of the things is you may have more than one mentor, but the first question for you is, okay, well, what do you want from the relationship? Like, what is it the mentor, what is the thing that you're solving for? Is it that you want insight into their area or a broader view of the organization? Or so could you share maybe, Christina, what are your thoughts in terms of how you would use a mentor?
Well, I will probably go on two directions, because it's always the insider, someone that works in your organization that can direct you very specifically towards the area that will help you reach your goals or progress in your career. But at the same time, I've noticed in my own experience that sometimes someone from outside that gives you not necessarily specifics about your company, but more strategic views or ways of thinking may help you in a strategic, in a kind of a management type of approach to your own progress. And I remember very early on in my career that I was doing a master's, and no, actually I was doing a language course, so something not completely unrelated to work. And I met an ex-AT&T manager that was now retired, and we just started talking about what I did, etc. And she said something very, very useful that stuck with me pretty much for the rest of my life, that said, if you're aiming to get somewhere in terms of your career progression, you must behave as if you were already there.
Yes,
so the way you talk, from what you dress, the way you dress, from who you talk to, you need to show people that you can do the job, even if you haven't even interviewed yet. And that's always remained with me. And as I said, it was like a kind of a sideline type of relationship, completely different industries to what I was in, but it has helped me a lot. And it's something that I keep telling other people, and I found very useful. So it's not that it's necessarily like your line manager or your line manager's kind of a equivalent in a different department in the company that can help you. You can also have these contributions that really make a change in the way you approach your career progress.
Yeah, very, very powerful story. Thanks for sharing that. I think you've proven the point that you want to have more than one mentor, right? I think, and having somebody outside the organization is really powerful, because they're not stuck in the, oh, we have to do it this way and that way, right? They'll have more broader views. The line manager should be your mentor as a good line manager. They're not really a mentor in that sense. The line manager I would see kind of separate. In terms of internally, so being strategic, let me give you my own example. So when I was looking to become MD, one of the feedbacks that I got on these wonderful 360-degree reviews was, Christine is great at, in fixed income, but outside of fixed income, she's not very strategic. So then I thought, okay, and part of it, part of these things are also perception, but I thought, okay, well, who do I respect? Because I think a mentor, in order for the relationship to be genuine, you have to respect them,
Yeah.
right? So who do I respect? And who do I think is well connected in the organization that could help me with that bigger strategic picture? And one of the people I identified was head of credit. And this person was not necessarily, mentor sponsor. My view is it's a spectrum, and a mentor can certainly turn into a sponsor. And I would say this person was not a sponsor in the sense that he wasn't a heavy power broker and could open doors, but he was really good at helping me understand the broader business and outside of my department. And so what I would do, Christiana, is I would, I knew the guy's work patterns. He would come in like at 8 a.m. And so, so I would stop by his office at 8 a.m. and I would say, Daniel, I just wanted to get your feedback. That's a great one. I just want to get your feedback. I'm looking to set up some new credit lines with this type of counterpart, but I wanted to understand kind of what your thoughts are and maybe what's happening in the broader business. And so that started a relationship, and I could tell that he was okay with me just stopping by. So every couple of weeks I just stopped by, and it was 10 minutes maximum. But then what I realized was he really did help me think about the wider organization. And I'm confident that he also then started promoting me. So it wasn't specific, okay, Christine for this role, but I know for a fact that he had relationships with those senior people who were responsible for the promotions. And so just by the fact that I started, as you were saying, you've got to be you've got to be with the people, having conversations with people as if you're at that next level. And that's what I was doing. So Daniel was at senior level. I was having a conversation with him, and that made me look more senior. So it can be inside or outside the organization, but be clear on, okay, well, what am I trying to get out of this? And also, again, that giving point. I think it was Fiona that says, it's natural for me to think about that. In the mentor relationship, what I was able to give to this senior person, Daniel, was I helped him with what was happening in my world, and things that might be beneficial for him to know about certain aspects of the business, because I was at that level that he couldn't see. So it is about that two-way relationship.
Thank you.
So on the networking, I know we have got a few minutes left. On the networking and sponsor, any other comments or questions maybe to add to this? Yes, Gabby.
I have one. I don't find networking difficult.
Can you turn up your volume? We can hear you, but ever so slightly.
Is that better?
A bit more.
Is that better?
Mm.
Oh, hang on.
Is that better now?
Yes.
Yeah, which is quite ironic because I'm a very loud person, so you can always hear me. I don't find networking difficult at all. It comes very naturally to me, except for when I'm looking for a job, because then I don't have the giving piece and I feel like I'm asking rather than giving. And I just wanted to have, whether you had any advice at all on that. As I said, Mark and Katie, who are probably the only ones that know me, have no trouble at all with networking. It's probably my greatest strength when I'm not asking for help, and I really struggle to ask for help. And any advice on how I can reconcile those two parts?
Yeah, that's a great one. I would say when you're interviewing for a job, I think that's one of the biggest gifts, because if they hire you, they've massively got a gift, right? So I think the interview also to think about, it's also a conversation, and it's two-way, because you want to be asking them open-ended questions so that you're doing your own due diligence. Is this organization right for me? Is the culture right? Is the role right? And you asking those kind of conversations and making it feel like it's two equals makes you more attractive. They'll want you more. They'll want you more.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you. I didn't mean in an interview. In an interview, that's fine for exactly that reason. I probably ask more questions in an interview than the other way around. I meant when you're actually just looking for a job, reaching out to people and asking someone that you know, can you help me? I hate that because it just doesn't come naturally because I've got nothing to give back.
But you do.
Totally, absolutely. Once at interview stage, I'm usually back to normal. It's getting there that I find really challenging to reconcile those two parts of me.
Yeah. The trick is, if I know you, say I know Gabby, and I know what a great job she does. I refer you to somebody else, which is the kind of role that you're looking for. You make me look good. I've just shared you with somebody else. So that getting others to help you, you're also helping them, because then they have something to give to their network. They're feeding their network, right? So I know we're near the hour, but before I pass over to Mark, I just want to say, anybody that wants to have a 30-minute complimentary career chat, happy to do that, happy to continue the conversation, and really wish you all well. Over to you, Mark.
Christine, thank you very much. Thank you so much, and thank you for everybody for asking those questions, and what brilliant answers, Christine. Thank you. This